I totally forgot I had a spa appointment today. Walk to the hospital, will you? Come on, hurry up and get out. If you don't get out yourself, I'll make you get out. My granddaughter Avery and I were confused, both of us delirious with high fever. On a snowy day, we had both come down with a fever. We were in the car, being driven to the clinic by my daughter-in-law Riley, after pleading with her. We couldn't understand Riley's words and were unable to stand up from our seats in the car. Apparently, she didn't like that. Riley came around to the back seat and literally dragged Avery and me out of the car. Now the nuisances are gone. Just make it to the clinic on your own, she said, laughing as she drove away. Mom, did she really just abandon us? Even in such a situation, Avery still saw her as her mother. Even before this incident, Avery had been mistreated by Riley. She kept all the harassment from us adults, acting bravely. But when you're sick, your true feelings come out. In her feverish delirium, Avery teared up as she watched the car driving away. We had been enduring Riley's mistreatment for a while, but this was the last straw. I managed to make a call from the hospital to a certain person. I am Mila Smith. I retired last year and am a 60-year-old housewife working part-time. Until 6 months ago, I lived with my husband in a small house. But then, my husband suddenly passed away from an illness. Just 2 months after it was discovered. It was such a sudden event, both my son Theo and I had a hard time accepting it as reality. Especially me, as I had been with my husband since middle school. We were practically one. Right after he passed, I couldn't even eat. Clearing out his belongings in our home, I couldn't stop crying and made little progress. Occasionally, Theo would come over to help me. Gradually, I accepted reality and finished organizing the house. That's when Theo suggested I live with him and his family. But you have a wife, so I'll pass. Theo married around the age of 30. His wife, Riley, 2 years younger than him, was a stay-at-home mom. They met at work, and it was Riley who made the first move. Theo was impressed by her passionate approach, and after dating for about 6 months, they had a quick wedding. Riley, who quit her job for marriage, soon had their daughter, Avery. Riley truly loves Theo. I didn't see her often, but it was clear from her actions how much she cared for him. Perhaps that's why she wanted to keep her distance from us. Riley and Theo had bought a condo about an hour's drive from our house and lived there. But Theo always cared greatly for his parents. He even bought me a fridge for my birthday once. Not just that, he would take me and his family on trips for mine and my husband's wedding anniversary. From an outsider's perspective, he's a son with strong family ties. We didn't spoil our kids in every way, you know. We always made sure to praise them when they did well, and we didn't hesitate to scold them when they did something wrong or bad. Even after getting married, we told Theo not to feel obligated towards us but to prioritize Riley and their family. However, Theo always said, "Riley is so understanding. She always supports me," and never changed his behavior. But I guess Riley had her grievances with Theo. Whenever it was just us women, she would indirectly say things that felt hostile. She never did anything direct like breaking things, but I worried that something might happen if we spent too long together. Theo is a good kid, but he's not great at picking up on things. Maybe Riley finds this convenient, as she always behaves like a gentle and kind woman in front of Theo. I guess they get along fine that way. Honestly, because of these circumstances, I had some reservations about moving in with them. Living alone can be tough, right? Besides, Riley and Avery are all for living together. With my granddaughter Avery around, I probably wouldn't be alone with Riley too often. And it's unlikely she'd do anything in front of Theo. Avery is a cheerful kid, more like Theo in personality. And she's quite fond of me. Holding on to a faint hope, I nodded my agreement. All right. I'll be careful not to be a bother. I'd like to live with you all. You're more than welcome. We've got a room ready for you. Since I wasn't giving up my own home, I only needed to pack the essentials. So, I moved in with them, leaving my most treasured items at my own house. But my faint hope was quickly shattered. After I moved in, Riley started harassing me, especially when Theo wasn't around. She'd open packages that were delivered for me, eat the ice cream I bought without asking. And sometimes she wouldn't wash my laundry. You're capable of doing it yourself, so please do. And buy your own detergent. If I tried to use the dryer, she'd get angry about the wasted electricity. I reluctantly started separating my laundry into a different basket. And Theo? He didn't notice a thing. In fact, he thought I was doing these chores voluntarily. Probably because he wasn't home much and left all the housework to Riley. Riley, in front of Theo, would actively take care of Avery, so their household seemed to function well enough. But for me, this life was stifling. I debated many times whether to tell Theo or to leave the house. But I figured if I just put up with it, everything would be fine. I didn't come here to break up a family that has a child. Instead of talking to Theo, I started keeping a diary of my unspoken thoughts. I detailed everything that happened, in case I needed evidence in the future. Using a voice recorder might have been more concrete evidence. But I didn't want to escalate things, so I didn't go that far. It's frustrating, but I'm living under their roof. I decided to put up with it until things settled down. That was until I saw Riley mistreating Avery. I caught her taking Avery's stuffed animal doll and throwing it in the trash. It didn't seem like discipline or teaching. Theo has always been fond of kids, and he adores his daughter Avery to no end. Almost like she can do no wrong in his eyes. He regularly buys her whatever she wants, like the stuffed toy that was just thrown away. There was no indication that Avery had been misbehaving, so I asked her, "Avery, what happened?" "It's always like this." "Always?" "When Dad's here, nothing happens. But when he's gone, she becomes like a monster. It's scary."
That bad?
"Sometimes there's no food, and she ripped the clothes Dad bought for me, saying it's because I'm a bad kid." It seems like Riley is jealous of Avery, too. It's obvious to me how much Theo cherishes Riley. The engagement and wedding rings he bought for her were from the expensive brand she wanted, costing over $10,000 in total. He never misses giving her gifts for birthdays or anniversaries. Still, it seems Riley feels she's not his #1 priority. In front of Theo, she acts like a good mother, but when he's not around, she's like a dictator. "When I'm with Dad, Mom is so nice and buys me everything. But I'm scared of getting her angry, so please keep what I said a secret." Avery is just in 2nd grade this year. Such a young child, and she's been bearing this all alone. Why didn't I realize sooner? This isn't a problem that can be solved just by me enduring it. I regret that I was too caught up in my own problems. The day I witnessed the harassment, Theo came home from work late, after 11 p.m. I decided to talk to him the next day. But unfortunately, he had to leave on an emergency business trip. There was a big trouble, and he didn't have time for a conversation. While Theo was away, Riley was inviting friends over to our house almost every day. Birds of a feather flock together, I guess. Her friends didn't seem to find anything odd about Riley's behavior. She was doing whatever she wanted, hosting parties at the house every day. During this time, neither Avery nor I had meals prepared for us. And the harassment towards me intensified. I wanted to call Theo about Avery, but I had to wait for the right moment. However, Riley seemed to sense my intentions. "Don't report to Theo, please. It would make my position even worse." Riley took away both my smartphone and Avery's kid's phone. I couldn't find where she hid them, so I couldn't get them back. There's a landline at my own house, but I don't know Theo's cell number. Plus, Riley spends a lot of time at home, and I feel like I'm under surveillance. Escaping isn't easy, and it wouldn't solve anything if I left without Avery. I need to find a way to save her. I'm getting anxious. Right now, Riley is neglecting us. I'm using my own money to buy food and cook for Avery. I'm doing all our laundry, And I even walk Avery to her extracurricular activities. I'm handling everything from taking out the trash to cleaning up. Still, with Riley throwing parties every day, if I miss even one day of cleaning, the house starts to smell. Avery, with her chronic bronchial issues, needs regular visits to a major hospital. Sometimes she needs tests like X-rays or blood work, which means long hours at the hospital. I'm the one accompanying her and listening to the doctors.
Grandma, are you pushing yourself too hard? I'm fine, honey. Grandma's here to take care of you.
Yeah. I just wish Dad would come home soon. Seeing Avery tear up like that, I felt an urgent need to resolve this situation. It's only been 2 months since I moved in. I quit my part-time job when I moved, and I'm not part of any community groups like a senior center. With my smartphone taken away, I have no way to contact anyone. Right now, I have nobody to talk to about this. I don't even know how long Theo's business trip will last. It's the beginning of a period of despair. 2 months into this life, in February. Perhaps due to global warming, this year has been marked by extreme temperature fluctuations. I think the mental stress is a factor, but both Avery and I have been unwell. Avery has missed school occasionally, but she says school is better than home. And keeps going. Then came the day of a once-in-a-decade snowstorm. Feeling unwell from the day before, I woke up with a fever of 102 degrees Fahrenheit. It wasn't just me, Avery also seemed to have a fever and was struggling even to get up. We didn't have any fever reducers or pain relievers at home. It might be a seasonal epidemic. And I've heard it's risky to use over-the-counter fever reducers in such cases. We need to get to a pediatrician or a general practitioner. Riley has known about our health issues and has done nothing so far. I don't expect her to do anything this time either. The nearest hospital is about a 10-minute walk. Though Avery is only in 2nd grade, she's a bit taller than her peers. And I'm over 60 now. Even though I've never been seriously injured, it's physically demanding. If only I wasn't down with a fever. But wishing doesn't change reality. Somehow, I managed to convince Riley to let me use the landline to call a taxi. But because of the heavy snow, all the taxis were out, and they couldn't dispatch one for us. With no way to tell how long it would take, we were refused service. How can I get Avery to the hospital? I had no choice but to ask Riley for help. After much deliberation, I decided to go with that plan.
Please, Riley, can you drive us to the hospital?
I pleaded with Riley. She looked contemplative for a moment before saying, "Okay, I will. But you know, asking me for a favor means you owe me something in return, right?" Basically, she was saying if she's going to act like a taxi, I need to pay her. There could be something seriously wrong with Avery. If paying her is what it takes, I have no choice but to go along with it.
It's not much, but will this do?
I handed over all the money I had in my wallet, $100, to Riley. It must have been less than she expected, as her face showed clear displeasure. It's no wonder the amount was small. I had quit my part-time job. And despite this, I was covering the expenses for Avery that Riley didn't pay. This $100 was significant for me, but I had no choice. Riley, still looking unsatisfied, put the money firmly into her wallet. "Well, all right. Hurry up and get ready," she said, reluctantly agreeing to take us. I was worried her mood might change any minute. I quickly got Avery, who was very weak, ready, and we got into the car. Because of the rush, I was still in my pajamas. Riley just stared at her phone the whole time we were getting ready. As we set off in the blinding white snow, I could feel the tension in her rough driving. Halfway to the hospital, the car came to an abrupt stop.
What's wrong? Did something break?
I just remembered, I have a spa appointment today. Walk the rest of the way to the hospital, will you? Come on, get out quickly.
If you don't get out yourself, I'll make you get out.
Avery and I, both delirious with high fever, were confused. We couldn't understand what Riley was saying and couldn't get up from the car. Apparently, she didn't like that. Riley came around to the back seat and literally dragged Avery and me out of the car.
Now the nuisances are gone. Just make it to the hospital on your own,
she said, laughing as she drove away.
Mom, did she really just abandon us?
Even in such a situation, for Avery, Riley was still her mother. With tears in her unfocused, feverish eyes, Avery watched the car drive away.
Avery, let's get to the hospital first. We'll figure out something about your mom.
I might not have been very convincing, as I hadn't been able to do much until then. But that was all I could offer her at the moment. I was fighting back tears of guilt and helplessness. Supporting each other, we somehow managed to walk to the hospital. Mom. Even while receiving N4 treatment, Avery talked about Riley. Why does my young granddaughter have to suffer like this? My patience had reached its limit. Fortunately, it was the hospital Avery regularly visited, so they agreed to admit her. Life in the hospital was more restful than at home. I realized then how much I had been on edge. After a bit of mental and physical recovery, we were ready to be discharged. It had been 3 days. Returning home, Riley was visibly shocked to see us.
Seriously? You're alive?
While thinking what a terrible thing to say, I instinctively hid Avery behind me.
Yes, we got proper treatment at the hospital. The worst. I kicked you out to avoid making this place a scene of an accident. It would have been better if you'd disappeared.
Riley looked down on us with a disdainful expression. Her surprise at seeing only us return turned into shock when someone else appeared.
Riley! What are you saying?
The person who came up behind us was Theo.
Theo, why are you here?
During our hospital stay, I had called a particular person. It was Theo. As Avery's regular hospital had Theo's cell number for emergencies, I asked the hospital to let me call him to report our admission. They allowed it, considering our blood relation. It seemed Riley had been regularly updating Theo. But she hadn't mentioned our ill health. She told him she was handling all the household chores.
It's been cold lately. You two rest up. Can Riley take over for you?
Riley isn't here.
Why not? Did she already leave?
Riley was supposed to bring us, but she kicked us out of the car. I told Theo everything about how Riley had been treating us, not sparing any details. I reported how she harassed both Avery and me and hadn't done any household chores since Theo left on his business trip. I can't believe Riley would do such things, but if you say so, it must be true. I'll hurry back, just wait a little longer. Initially, Theo had denied what I said. But as I kept talking fervently, he seemed to realize it was serious. However, he needed to see evidence with his own eyes to be convinced. I strongly urged him to come and see the situation himself and asked him to take some time off work. As promised, Theo managed to finish his work early and returned home temporarily.
Riley, what's all this about? Explain everything. Is what you just said really how you feel? It's not true. That was just a joke.
Mom, let's stop this now. Avery, who had been quietly observing our argument, spoke up. Through tears, she started recounting the treatment she had received from Riley. Though she stumbled over her words at times, the harshness of her experiences was too much for a grade schooler.
I can't believe this. I didn't think she was that kind of person. It's not true. Avery, stop lying.
Theo, usually gentle, had a tense expression. He rushed to comfort Avery, who continued to cry. Ignoring Riley, who kept denying everything, I took out my diary.
Here's the proof. This is all your handwriting, right? You made it all up. In fact, I'm the one who's been harassed. Please believe me, Theo.
Riley clung to Theo's arm, crying. Without a glance at Riley, Theo began reading my diary. There's more proof. Come inside. I regretted not having bought a voice recorder. But it was too late to turn back now. I had to show more concrete evidence, or Riley might twist things in her favor. I let Theo into the house, half believing I had some physical proof. My intuition was correct. It seemed Riley had thrown another party at home yesterday. The living room was littered with empty alcohol cans and leftover food packages. With us having been away for 3 days, there was a slight odor too.
So, everything Avery and Mom said is true. This is just a one-time thing. I couldn't clean up.
Riley, let's get a divorce. I'll take care of Avery. Theo's decision to bring up divorce, without listening to Riley's excuses, was a clear indication of his feelings. Riley, faced with the prospect of divorce, couldn't accept it. "No, I won't let you go," she cried like a child, unable to have a rational conversation. Theo quickly called Riley's parents to explain the situation. The call was on speakerphone, so we could hear her parents' reactions. They sounded very shocked, followed by what seemed like a sigh. They apologized profusely before hanging up. You can imagine that Riley wasn't in a state to have a coherent conversation right then. Riley remained inconsolable, repeatedly apologizing to Theo but never explaining anything to us. It was clear we couldn't stay there forever. The 3 of us, excluding Riley, decided to start living in my house. Theo, unable to let go of his feelings, tried to talk to Riley several times. But she just kept denying everything.
I didn't do anything wrong.
It made me angry all over again. She wasn't always bad. I would have reconsidered if she changed her attitude, but with no change in her behavior, Theo decided to go through with the divorce. The divorce was finalized through lawyers since a conversation with Riley was impossible. Avery initially resisted the idea. "Mom is so pitiful. Dad should stay with her." Despite the harassment she had faced. Probably because Riley behaved well in Theo's presence. That little bit of sweetness was hard to forget. In a way, maybe Riley was pitiable too, her life changing dramatically after meeting Theo. Hearing Avery's words, I felt pity for Riley for the first time, beyond just anger. But Theo and I always showed Avery love. Living without fear of others' faces is surely more peaceful for Avery. Adjusting to life in our house and feeling safe away from her mother, Avery gradually decided to distance herself from Riley. Theo could have sought child support and alimony but chose not to, unable to cut ties completely. Since Riley was a stay-at-home wife with no savings or income, there were no financial claims made, and the divorce was solely based on other grounds. Riley's parents, having received the news from Theo, flew in from their remote countryside home, which took some time due to the distance. After the divorce was finalized, Riley was taken back by her parents to be cared for at their home. They came to us directly to apologize for the trouble caused. Especially to me, they offered cash as a form of reparation. According to Riley's parents, she seemed to have suffered a mental breakdown after separating from Theo. Since her student days, she had a tendency to become deeply involved in relationships. There had been several instances where she had caused trouble or harassed her partners. Each breakup led to her being deeply depressed and often confined herself at home. As she matured and her life outside of personal relationships became more fulfilling, she appeared to have stabilized mentally. That was when she met Theo and fell in love. Theo, being kind-hearted, always tried to keep her reassured. However, she was displeased with his kindness towards others. All these factors culminated in the current situation. With her parents' help, she started visiting a psychiatrist. But she was struggling to recover, mostly staying in her room. Hospitalization was considered, but for now, she was being closely monitored at home. All contact information for Theo was deleted on the doctor's advice. And Theo also deleted hers, meaning they would no longer be in contact. I declined to accept the reparation money, asking them to use it for Riley's treatment instead. Theo seemed unaware of Riley's current state. We, as parents, debated whether to inform him. But Theo and Avery might not want to be reminded of it. Especially for Avery, who might blame herself saying, "If only I wasn't there." The scars Riley had inflicted on her during her childhood were still profound. We decided to keep it between us, the parents. Living with Theo and Avery started, and it hasn't been a burden at all. I feel sorry that Avery had to change schools. But she says it doesn't bother her. Theo tries to finish work early and come home. I haven't resumed my part-time job, instead joining a local exercise club for seniors. This incident made me realize the importance of engaging with the community. And I've made acquaintances in the neighborhood. Now, I'm living modest but happy days with my beloved son and granddaughter.